Okay, so this week I wanted to get back to gaming. I want to talk about Arc Raiders. I've been playing it for a couple of months now. Um, Definitely enjoy a lot of the gameplay around it. So I want to talk a little bit about that and then some of the thoughts I've had with it. Um, Past initial reaction. Because there's some things where, you may or may not enjoy it, but ultimately there's like there's different reasons behind some of the decision making when it comes to designing each and every game, right? So first things first, they've had a new patch release which I haven't actually had a chance to try out, but I will be later this week. um I believe it's like, I don't know if there's a new map, but there's definitely new weather conditions for you to deal with. Supposedly, it's actually pretty difficult, and then some new mobs, some of which are also pretty challenging, which sounds pretty fun. Um, so first things first, what I do like about the game is the core gameplay loop is really fun. Um, you load in, you can get a free loadout that you can just kind of run around with and start with, so that you can start making some money, and that way you can start building things instead of like immediately having to kind of struggle a lot to build on. The weapons that they give you aren't necessarily amazing, but you kind of learn to work with what you've got, and I feel like being able to deal with the challenges with a shittier loadout teaches you how to play it better and smarter before you're able to get better weapons and upgrades and whatever that make your life easier. The weapons themselves feel pretty cool. There's a mixture of long range, short range, assault style, rifles, um, sniper, shotguns, things like that. So you get a pretty good range to work with, whether you want to bring stuff for PvP or PvE. Um, there's some nuances that they put in, some annoyances like you can only carry so much stuff, like the weight and whatever, which makes sense. I don't know about like I don't really care about realism when it comes to games. So I think the whole point of that is just to set limitations around like how much you can loot. But at the same time, it seems kind of whatever to me, because I've loaded into matches where I was able to come out with more high value loot value in terms of the currency in game um than the weight determined. Like, yes, the some of the weapons are expensive and whatnot, that you can sell, but basically, yeah, the game shooting's fun. Some of the mobs are really cool. The synergy between the spotters and bombardiers, so that you kind of have to deal with multiple things at the same time rather than just straight up LOSing the mob. Knowing that you kind of have to play different things a certain way. The movement itself is not bad. It's not super slick. They do try to add a little realism to it, but not so much that it's like too cumbersome. Um, it's also just like different for different people. Map designs are great. Some of them, I know like some people prefer certain maps over others, and definitely some maps are better for one thing versus another. But it's nice to have that kind of variety, and they really put a lot of thought into like the different obstacles that they put there, buildings, or where the open areas are, where you get cover, and how the mobs kind of interact with all of the buildings too. So in that sense, like the game itself is really good. The loot system works pretty, like the looting interactions itself works pretty well as well. There are some times where it's like you can tell it's a little awkward because they had to kind of make the game available for MNK and controller, for consoles and whatever. That sometimes, like if you're wondering, why the loot system's like why looting's kind of awkward in certain scenarios or in certain interactions, usually it's kind of because of that. So all in all, like the foundation of the game itself is really strong. Um, some of the biggest, I mean, one of the biggest divisive things is the whole like PvP versus PvE thing and why they mix the servers and don't split. So I'm definitely going to talk about that, but I do want to start by saying that it's not that this whole thing is not meant to be like, I hate this, um, just like hating on the game itself or hating on some of the decisions and whatnot. I really just want to, any critiques is more about not just taking a game at face value, not just taking some of the things that have been set by previous standards as what it is. One of the things is whenever I question whenever I question a decision, the way I like to think about it is that if you question a decision, right, and the response is that's just the way it is, that basically means that there hasn't been thought put into the question that I'm asking, that they didn't critically assess their own decision making, right? Because if you had thought about this and you made a choice to not do something or to do something, there should be a reason behind it other than that's how it's always been done, other than we don't have time to deal with this, so you're just going to have to accept it. Which even that I'll take, because it's just like eventually, the game needs to get released, right? Eventually, any product making, if you're ever in, I mean, hardware development is a little bit different because obviously you have to test against safety issues and whatnot. Then when it comes to software, obviously security loops, privacy issues. But outside of that, like there's a lot more flexibility, and in terms of releasing software, people kind of expect it on a faster cycle. And so there's it's more acceptable to have certain issues be rolled over to the next iteration, to the next patch, bug fix, and whatnot, right? So that being said, I just wanted to take a little bit of time to think about some of these things and kind of assess it for what they are. Okay, so first things first is the whole PvP versus PvE thing, right? The game is designed to be PvPvE, and there's no issue with that. Actually, it's fun. Okay, so if the game were to be every server is PvPvE, that would actually be a really fun game. If you're load in and you don't know what you're gonna get in terms of like you're pretty much expecting to get shot at whatever percentage of the time. So if let's say it's 50-50, right? It could be 30-70, 40-60, whatever it may be, but whatever it is, you end up with that mix of people pretty much all the time because that is the player base. All right, if 70% of the people want to PvP and 30% don't, you're going to end up with a PvPvE lobby that's 70% aggressive, 30% not. And then there are some PvPers who only shoot when they shoot back, right? So it might be like 30% aggressive, 30% defensive, 40% non-action. They're just going to run away. And of course, in certain conditions where you're in a losing battle, you want to kind of run away anyway. But if that's just what it is, then that's the gameplay, and that's what you expect every single time you loop it. You load in, and that's how you set your loadouts, right? And I get that you can pretty much set it that way anyway, but it doesn't really make sense if you're trying to do certain things. And the issue here is not the whole splitting PvP versus PvE lobbies. I think like that's from what I can see, that's probably like the most popular way of putting it, to at least to just like address this issue. I think the thing is that that's probably the lowest hanging fruit, right? It's like, hey, if we just split the lobbies, it'd be cool. Realistically, the issue doesn't come from PvP versus PvE lobbies. Like, I've played other games that have the same setup and it works perfectly fine, but I've had other games that's like, it's just you never know what you're going to get, and not in a way where it's like you never know what you're going to get sometimes. And this is where the problem comes in, okay? So we have mixed lobbies, we have PvP lobbies. Basically, there's like a degree of aggression in any instance of the game that you spit up, and you can call it different servers, whatever, right? But essentially, if you PvP, if you shoot, if you loot dead bodies, you're gonna end up in more aggressive lobbies. If you don't shoot, you're gonna end up in less aggressive lobbies. That's the part that kind of, it would make sense, except people will always exploit things, right? So you kind of have to like plan around that to begin with. You should already know that that's a thing. And if you don't want it to be a thing, then address it. So clearly, because it hasn't been addressed, it's not, whether or not they want it to be a thing that they care about, it's a thing, it's not a priority. Right? So essentially they've accepted it for at least the time being, whether or not they're going to accept it, or maybe that's just the way they want to do it, right? But the thing is, there are people who figured out that you can essentially spawn in with nothing and surrender, and if you spawn die, it counts as not having shot, loading in without, the system basically checks that you loaded in, you didn't shoot anybody before you loaded out. And if you do that enough times, it assumes you don't want to PvP and it'll put you in friendlier lobbies. So, of course, people have figured out to do that. One, I don't actually mind the people who do it because they normally like the PvP, but the game has some PvE objectives, such as trials, and they want to do that. The issue comes, and then even if they start PvPing, whatever, okay, that just happens, right? Like, if that's just the game. But it makes it like really kind of like, they say the PvP aspect is to create tension. Every time you load in, you don't know if you're gonna get shot, so you have to be careful. You have to play certain ways, and etc. Right? I understand that part. The part that bugs me is that it's inconsistent, and not in a way where it's like some lobbies are 20% aggressive, some lobbies are 80% aggressive. And that's fine if that's just the way it is. You load in, you don't know what to expect. The thing is that there's a way to essentially manipulate the system. And now, unavoidably, at this day and age, like, the the way people play games, there's definitely a good handful of people who want to rat, which, that's fine. You want to rat. That's actually like a valid way to play, right? You just sit in a corner, wait, and like jump people. It's actually pretty funny. Um, and then there's people who play traitors who pretend to be friendly and then shoot you at the end. I even get that, that's like that's also, that can be pretty funny. The issue is like the people who kind of do it in a shitty way, like they do it and they're like, I don't know, man. It's like, maybe it's just like a different generation of gamers, which, it's not like they didn't exist before, but like a lot of times, like there was a lot more like cohesive working together type of thing going on in a lot of the earlier player base in earlier gaming. Um, and if people rat you, you just be like, oh fuck, whatever. And their response would be like, haha, yeah. Or, like there would be like some kind of funny interaction, and it makes it funny. When you do it just to like bully people, and I say bully not in a like, okay, you killed them, like you shot them more than they shot you, or you shot them without them shooting you, whatever. It's the point is that you are the only way you're enjoying it is that you're making somebody else unhappy. Like you're actually upsetting them. And then even with your chat, the point is to upset people. And you're just fucking shitty. There's just a lot of there's definitely a level of toxicity going on that people are more and more accepting of, because that's just how it is, because there's no repercussions. Everybody can see that there's very little repercussions online. People say whatever they want to say. People say things just to get a rise out of people. But for what? Just because you're not standing in front of me and I can't punch you in the face? That that just seems small. Um and so don't mind the rats, don't mind the PvP, don't mind any of that. I don't mind the mixed servers. I think that would be better. I would much prefer that just every match was just mixed servers. That would really make that tension exist all the time, and it'd be fun. I think the problem is that the expectation as you load into games is asymmetric, because it is possible to force the system to put you into friendly lobbies. And it'll keep you in friendly lobbies for a while, and then it kind of mixes you a little bit, or somebody pretends to be friendly for long enough, or they do the spawn die loop a few times so that they can purposely get into friendlier lobbies to fuck with people who don't want to PvP. That whole thing is just like, I don't understand. Because for me, like, if I wanted to PvP, that's fine. I just PvP. Because some of it is like, some of the PvE objectives are kind of interesting and fun. Sometimes I'm more focused on that. And so like, and if you play with other teammates that don't want to PvP, then obviously you would like, you know, play more nicely and be a friendly player, and then, try to get yourself into the friendly lobbies. Um, then if you're doing that, like as I'm doing that, I'm expecting to be in friendly lobbies. Even though I know at any point somebody could shoot me, realistically, it's not tension. Um, I just expect that I'm gonna get my shit taken, and it's gonna be kind of annoying. I'll lose my stuff. I have to make new stuff, grind some new shit. Really, I mean, it's not a big deal. Um, so for me, when I play it, it's not so much tension. It's just like, I plan for certain things. It doesn't go my way, whatever, because you're trying to stay in friendly lobbies, you're not going to shoot back. If I know I'm not going to shoot back because I will get punished with more PvP lobbies, it's not tension. I'm not like waiting to fight somebody. If I get shot at, I'll try to run away. If it doesn't happen, then I'm just screwed. And that's that. It's annoying, but it's not like I'm not running around worried about somebody shooting me. I pretty much have to assume that somebody might, but play as if nobody really will, because there's friendly lobbies and aggressive lobbies. So that's really it. I mean, that part alone is just like, I think the divisiveness of the whole split lobby versus like mixed lobbies, I don't think it's like the I don't think people have a problem with split or mixed. I think they just don't know what to expect every single time they load in. And it's kind of just it just makes it a unpredictable game, but not in like a fun tension kind of way. Not it doesn't make it like it doesn't make it interesting. It just makes it kind of annoying and tedious. Um, but yeah, I don't know that they're gonna do anything about it. That might just maybe that's just the design of it, right? They're like, okay, we're designing it for the people who want to do that. We want to make it a way so that so people who want to shoot people can potentially load into friendlier lobbies and just crush people. And that's funny. Maybe I'm sure it's funny to someone. I'm sure it's funny to people who are doing it, obviously. I just don't understand why you would want that as a developer. So that's like probably one of the biggest things. Another thing now is that there's this thing where you like, okay, in order to give stuff to a friend, um, so in order to exchange items in the game, you have to group up, load into a match, and then hand the things off, and then extract. So I can kind of understand that, except I feel like that's that's kind of how the whole category of extraction shooters were designed to be. It was a new thing. That new thing was that there was a certain amount of risk in playing, and people who like extraction shooters are all people who like that. And I get that. I think gaming has changed a lot. Gaming, the term gamers have kind of shifted a good amount too, right? There's it's just like different people at this point. And I'll kind of get into that a little bit more later on, but realistically it's just like, okay, the whole item exchange thing. And again, maybe this is a thing that's what they intended it to be, right? Which I know like part of it is. So the whole like loading in and making you do the exchange, like all of that forced risk factor is definitely part of the whole extraction shooter theme thing. So it's not that it's never existed. It's just that there's newer styles of gamer, right? So essentially, like the whole point of it now to me is just like it's kind of just a time sink, you know? If I wanted to give my friend, I don't know, some ammo or something, not even ammo, like what, something that they can make, maybe like if I wanted to give my friend I don't know, an augment, um for them to use, I'm like, hey, I got this sick ass blueprint, right? I can make this new augment, let me make one for you. We have to load in and I have to hand it off. And the best part is like if you hand them an augment, they can't even use it. They have to carry it back before they can use it. I mean, the one is like, look, I have some friends, like I get to play a good amount of time every day, you know. In the evening at least like somewhere like 4 or 5 hours, sometimes only three. And then some days I'm able to play in the middle of the day, which is nice. But that's like a reasonable amount of gaming time to be like semi-casual, you know. Not in like a profession sense, but just like in time played, right? And then you have obviously like pretty much teenagers at this point. Like I feel like a lot of teenagers just game now, or even kids, but it would be like potentially different games. But basically, they like get off of school, whether or not they do homework, I don't really know. Like, I don't know. I don't even know what they do nowadays. But they'll get home from school and they get to game and then they eat dinner and then they game some more. And so you're looking at like at least like what? It's like from 3 p.m. to sometimes they're off earlier. So let's say like 2 or 3 until like freaking 11. That's like 8 hours a day, which is a good amount. And they probably game a little bit in the morning too after they get up. So just kind of depends, but that's a lot more game time than a more casual person who maybe gets to play like 2 3 hours a night, if that, you know. And then you have people who are like really busy adults who enjoy gaming, and so like I got a buddy who can only play like a few hours every other week, like a few hours a night for a few days in a row every other week. So realistically, you're looking at like maybe 10 hours of gameplay every other week, who just doesn't have the time to farm all the stuff that we need to do more difficult content. Um, and so when you load into the game, right, you kind of want to do, okay, you want to item exchange. You want to exchange more than the 1 or 2 items that up to 3 items in the safety pocket, right? So potentially you're looking at doing a few spawn die runs to get into friendly lobbies. Let's say like you do 2 or 3. Some people do 4. But let's say you average out 3, right? The load in spawn die thing is gonna take you, I don't know, 10 minutes. Okay. Maybe more if you need to deal with your inventory because you need space in your inventory to be able to do the suicide runs. Um, every time you split a group and you get back together, essentially every time you form a new group, a new group setup is formed. So whether or not it's like solo or 2 people or 3 people, um, every time that changes, you pretty much have to do the spawn die thing again so that the game knows that this specific group or individual is friendly. Okay. So if you do that for like 10 minutes, right? And then you do like 3 or 4 after like, I'll say after like 2 loot handoff runs, it gets like pretty tedious because you hand it off and you're like running to the extraction. You get out. Okay, cool. All right. By then it's like half an hour, 40 something minutes in. Now, a lot of the map rotations are on specific timers, right? So if you're not able to be on at certain times, you just don't get to play those. So like forget it, and it's not even about like being hyper competitive in trials, but like you should be able to like at least do okay in trials and get up there. But pretty much like you either need to have a lot of time yourself to play it or have somebody who's able to kind of carry you um, to get a little bit of progress there if you are a casual slash busy adult style player, right? So it's just like the whole forced risk thing. Like people play these styles of game because they enjoy the risk. I get that. So like, okay, if you don't enjoy the risk, then don't play the game. I get that too. But also they're doing a lot of like they make a lot of decisions that seem to be for money, for revenue. So if you care about revenue, then you want to attract new players, you want retention. So if you're telling me that the response is then go play something else, then do you just not want more gamers? But that seems to be not the case because there's definitely some things that cater to it. I feel like the whole like being able to get into friendly lobbies is their way of catering to it, but it's really like not exactly a helpful way because I know a lot of people who just don't have the time when they have to deal with this unpredictable asymmetric expectation situation that they end up just logging off because they're not able to get things done in a expect like in a according to expectations. There's just you just can't set expectations there. So that's kind of a thing. And the funniest thing is like when you form a group, right? You just kind of you're basically standing next to each other in a bar underground, and then then it uh, you sit there, you're like, why can't I, if I have all of these things in my stash, you have all these things in your stash, we're clearly both underground, we're next to each other at a bar, our stash cannot be so far apart that like you can only access your stash underground, okay? You're both underground, you access your stash, and you put stuff in your backpack to bring with you on this. I'm like, how did they even send you there? Like, it looks like you go into like this capsule or something that sets you above ground, okay? You both get sent above ground, and then you hand stuff off and run to an elevator to go back down to the same bar to put your stuff away. It just, I mean, it just, that part is just comical, um, because the game design, the gameplay doesn't match the setting that they created. So that part of it is just funny. Um, and then outside of that, okay, so then you have like just different types of PvPers. And what's interesting is like some of the Reddit posts I would read is like, people talk about PvP, and clearly there's people that's like, well, if you can't handle this type of gameplay, like you just shouldn't play. Again, those are not devs saying, those are players that are like, oh yeah, well, if you don't want to play this, then don't play this. And it's like, well, the devs clearly want people to play. The company that sells the game wants more people to buy the game, wants people to play the game. They want the retention, they want the growth, they want to be able to sell more things, have that kind of engagement. And devs just want to like maybe give you more content to enjoy depending on who they are, right? So I get that there's different types of people, but like PvP is fun when there's fun interactions. So some guy called it, I can't remember who it was, but they said it was like ethical PvP, which is pretty funny. Where it's like, I've had people that I'm running around in the building and they're like, "Don't come in here, I'll shoot you," and I'm like, "All right, that's fair enough." Um, that is pretty much like I get that there's other types, right? There's like the rats, the again, makes it kind of fun. Sometimes you're like, holy shit, they came out of nowhere. You're like not expecting it happens. It's pretty entertaining. You have your traders who are like, oh yeah, hey buddy, whatever. And then like as you're both getting out or whatever. Um, the only time that one's fun is like if they kill you outside of the extraction. Cause like sometimes they wait to shoot you in the extraction. And I'm like, the fact that it's an extraction shooter, that the loot is a part of the gameplay, that means that like realistically, if you're trying to simulate that scenario, right, that whole like post-apocalyptic thing, you would do the friendly thing, fake being friendly, and then kill me outside, maybe in like a corner of the building or something, and take all my stuff. Like, that'd be okay. It's the ones that like wait for you to hit the extraction, they have no time to loot you. All they're trying to do is fuck you over so you can't extract. I've had ones who just like panic killed me. That was pretty funny. He was like, "Oh yeah, okay, cool, yeah, we're cool." And then I run, and he's like, "Sorry, dude, can't trust anyone." I'm like, "Dude, you must have gotten fucked over so many times that you just can't, you just don't feel safe anymore." That's just unfortunate, but also like now you're the same person doing it. You're the person doing the same thing that you're basically annoyed about, which is pretty hypocritical. Um, so yeah, the way the system is designed is like because of the spawn die ability to set you into friendlier lobbies, it really just like enables, quote unquote bad actors. Right? Ultimately, we're all gaming, so whatever. But it just kind of like normalizes toxicity in the gaming space. The whole like online interaction thing, because there's no repercussions, people feel more comfortable being shitty to other people. So like it's at that point it's not PvP, it's not like PvP gaming, it's just people being shitty in a gaming scenario. Um, because I again like the whole ethical PvPer thing, the the reason behind that is that it makes it fun for everyone. The PvP isn't the problem. It's the like people trying to be toxic is really the issue. And so it doesn't seem like they try to design to reduce it, or like they really consider that at all. It's more just like it feels like people who are like, this is a style for extraction shooters. That's it. We stick to the style, we make a game that's that. And it's a popular gaming type. Like it's a popular like style of gaming, right? And so I get that. I get sticking to the extraction shooter basics, but it definitely feels like there should be some consideration towards who's gaming nowadays versus who was gaming when extraction shooters first started, first became a thing. Um okay, so outside of that, really like outside of the fact that the whole design philosophy seems to be lagging behind um the the gaming audience, um that's really just like that's really the primary thought, is just that while I can see where the design, the whole style of the game is fun, right? The gameplay is fun. The PvP aspect is fun. Having straight up PvPers, aggressive players, rats, ethical PvPers, more realism in it, um, traders even. Like all of that is fun. If that's just how the game is. The fact that it kind of is like one foot in each boat is kind of awkward to me. Um, Makes it weird in terms of, I don't know, man. It's just like you can't do it one. You can't play it one way. You can't play it the other way. It's it's just kind of. I feel like trials conflicts with mixed lobbies, but they could just reduce trials a certain way, or have it be more focused on cumulative. But then that's like, you can say that cumulative trials would be unfair to people who don't have the hours to grind, but realistically now at this point, like, trials is a good amount of a grind. Like, I watched some of the videos and they're like, yeah, it took us 30 tries to do this. That's still a grind. Just because you have to do it in one run doesn't mean it only requires one run. So, if anything, make it a one-shot deal. Your first run, as soon as you hit above this score, That's the only score you can get. So plan ahead. But also mixed lobbies, so you're gonna have to fight. So then I don't know. Either way, it caters more towards people who have a lot of time on their hands to actually play the game, which is okay. But I think you just gotta kind of make it a little bit some like what is it, quality of life choices for some of the casual players, just so they don't have to spend like an hour freaking like exchanging loot with their buddies who are trying to help them out. Like all you gotta do is like be able to trade. Um, just just the trade window would be nice, or oh, what is it, a mailbox system or something. That was always pretty nice. Um, yeah. So that outside of that, the only other question I have is really that the whole monetization thing. So you have your like Marvel Rival type, you know, um, Apex, whatever. I feel like this one's leaning more towards like like Fortnite, whatever, right? It's all like free to play, and then there's you purchase cosmetics inside in the game, and that's pretty much it. And that's the way they make money. So they constantly roll out with cosmetics. So periodically they roll out a patch with little bits of new content, right? A little chunk of new content, constant cosmetics, and that's basically what they spend their dev resources on. Very little support. Um, just how the way the game is, because it's not a constant expectable subscription income, like subscription based games, right? So what's interesting is that game is a one-time purchase game. So in order to play it, you do have to buy it. Um, but then within it, there's still purchasable cosmetics, which I can understand. It's like online game, you need ongoing revenue. But the whole like content grind loop where it's like reusing content, like Call of Duty, the prestige thing where you hit your level max, you kit out your weapon, and then you prestige and you get a reward for prestiging, but everything resets. And so it feels like more content because there's progress, but progress also gets reset. So you're playing the same thing. Like it's basically a small carrot to make you replay the same things over and over again. They're like the new mobs happen to, and I think like they kind of like made it weird with the timing of the release of the patch versus the expedition timing. Um, because the patch came out right before the expedition started, which means there's new mobs coming in, and a lot of people are resetting. So I guess like I don't know if the whole point of it is that you should be having a really difficult time with the new mobs, or if that's just like they kind of, I don't know, had to release it. They like planned the expedition and then had to release content because it was feeling stale and they're losing a lot of players to a lack of things to do in the game. Um, but yeah, I feel like there's like, the player base is hitting a little bit of a content exhaustion. And so they do something with the expedition to basically give you a complete reset. So you have to start the game all over again. You get 5 extra skill points. You get some skill points, but outside of that, like you're just replaying the same game over and over again, right? Um, Even though there's like a couple of new mobs and a couple of new debuffs, like for a game that you had to pay to play, I just don't know. I don't know because a lot of games have a lot of free to play games have different maps. So that's not any different. There might be some PvE involved. I guess like storing like just from a economics perspective, with the game and with the gaming company, right? They need to store your gear, so there's storage there that's beyond just like cosmetics that you have, right? So like for Apex, Rivals, whatever, they're storing your cosmetics, your account information, your stats, which really don't take up a lot. Um, that's just like metadata stuff. That's not a big deal. But when it comes to like your gear and whatnot, I mean, theoretically, like they're storing it, but they're still just storing the metadata when you log off. When we log back on, it has to spin all these things up, but it's just spinning up the number to correlate to the icon. So it's still just server resources. So they're like not doing anything different. PvP server, PvE aspects, like it's really not that different from like a Fortnite game. I don't know. Maybe I'm missing something here. Uh, yeah, I don't really see anything that's really that different. It's still a repeat gameplay. You're not necessarily building on anything like Call of Duty level and the prestige you reset. That's a paid game. I get that. Um, you still level in like Apex and Rivals and things like that. So I don't know. Kind of interesting. I guess Helldivers kind of too. Is like, I mean, is extraction shooter just more expensive to produce um than, right? Like why did they get to do both one-time purchase and ongoing revenue, versus like I don't know, if you buy like, what is it, just like single player thing? Like why, I feel like it's like you either one-time purchase, make me buy the game, let me play it. Like I was playing Path of Exile, and you buy the game, you play it, you can play with your friends, and eventually you go through all the content and you pretty much just drop off and stop playing. That's kind of the expectation, because then the developers get to work on a new game, right? Partially like their people are getting paid from the revenue, and like that will make sense. That's kind of how it was. And then when we started the whole like free to play thing, then you have all the cosmetic stuff that you're doing. This seems like a mixed bag, where there's like they monetize, the game is already pay to play, then you monetize like ongoing monetization, enforced grind, the forced, like the prestige style repeat grind loops set you up for retention, so you can sell cosmetics, um and then you can patch the game with more content. But it seems to be kind of, again, like one camp or the other, like a foot in each boat. I don't know exactly what. I don't know. Is it more effective that way? Like, is it a necessity, right? Is it like this is the only way we can pay our devs to produce more stuff, or to be able to produce the next game, or is it just we need to maximize revenue for, what is it? Do they have a board? I don't even know who they are. Um, I don't know if they're like public or whatever, but like, right? Is it just like corporate greed? Is it necessity? It's pretty hard to tell at this point. So anyway, those are just some of the thoughts I had about it. Right or wrong, obviously everybody has different opinions. The game itself is super fun. So it's definitely worth the play. What I say, it's like worth $40 or however much it costs to play it. I think it's worth. It plays like what it costs, and if it were if it were all mixed servers, it would potentially be worth ongoing gameplay with a cosmetic thing and whatnot. Um, Similar to, I guess it's like similar to Diablo in that sense where you like buy it and then you kind of can buy cosmetics if you want to keep playing it, but there's less like with Diablo it's like different styles of characters with different abilities, different talent trees and whatever, and they'll reset it, and then when they reset, like the reset with the new patches, the talent trees change, right? Even if it's just mathematical differences, the abilities are still technically the same names and do generally the same things. It changes up the game and gives you something different to do. Different, you play differently each time the game changes. With this, nothing really changes. Your character is just cosmetic entirely. You can make it look however you want, and that doesn't really change much. Um, so realistically, it plays like a one-time purchase game, but I feel like they're trying to be something else, and it's just hard to tell. Hard to tell like why some of these decisions were made. But worth the play, at least for a couple of months. Um, just because like learning a new game, learning some mechanics, getting better at it is always a fun process. Like that alone is a fun process. Whether it's worth like long term playing. Like for me, I'm pretty much done with the game, uh, and I'm pretty much ready to move on. So I can't really say that it's worth long term playing. So I don't really understand the whole like additional cosmetic thing. But I guess like if some people really like it and want to keep doing it, you know, the whole what is it? It was Hot Shot and then Cantina Legend. I already did the Hot Shot part, and I don't think I can hit Cantina Legend. It seems really difficult to get to the top 1,000 in trials. Some people are getting like insane scores that I'm not entirely sure how they're getting it, unless like I was thinking about it, like even if you load in at like 4 in the morning when nobody's on, there's pretty much the way the servers are, like you're pretty much always gonna be sharing the server with at least someone. Um, and even if I could kill them, like it'll still, the amount of time it takes can still affect your scores. So again, the people who are getting like really high scores, they're making videos about it and they're like, yeah, it took us like 30 tries. Dude, I don't have 30 tries of time in me or effort in me. Like I think for one of the runs we did like 4 or 5 attempts, and we just accepted whatever high score we got, and we did pretty good. But anyway, made it to Hot Shot. It was pretty good, but outside of that, like Cantina Legends is like way too big of a gap, and I won't even get into all the videos of cheaters that people saw that are able to do it. I know some people like do the glitches and whatever. Um, but yeah, you just can't, I don't think I can compete, and so I pretty much hit the max for the game. And yeah, let me know what your thoughts are on the whole PvP situation, because like again, you know, I like the PvP aspects. I just think like the way it's done is a little wonky for me. But maybe you like it. Maybe you like all the cosmetics and are able to get really, like maybe that helps you get into the game or something. And what did I miss about it? You know, what are some of the, what do you think some of the design decisions are? Do you think they're just doing like this is how extraction shooters are and that's why? That's it, just like how it's always been done? And are you okay with that? Is it, or do you think there's like real legitimate reason and like good, reasonable reasons behind it that I'm just missing on? All right. Thank you guys so much. See you next time.